Hello everyone, I'd say welcome back to another Transformers review, but it isn't a Transformers review. I posted pictures of something I'd picked up recently on Facebook, and Dave Mentz, who's also a bit of a Star Wars fan, and Garry, I'm going to say that's how it's pronounced, also seemed quite interested in seeing a review on this particular item. Now, like I say, it's not Transformers related, so if you're a Transformers fan you might well now drift off, but if you do like Star Wars, I did manage to pick up a ship that I wanted as a kid, never really saw, don't really remember ever seeing them in the shops. I did manage to pick it up for a pretty decent price, a lot less than I've seen going for even sort of like damaged ones and that. I've seen some junkers at boot fairs and was tempted to pick them up, but then the cost of buying parts would have made it even dearer, obviously, finding those. But this was actually listed as damaged, but there was a small piece broken off, which I'll explain as I go through the review. But the actual part I found rattling about inside, so it is actually complete. So bearing a couple of marks here and there, it's in really nice condition. Now I'll lift it up so you can see. I mean, you'll know what it is anyway from the description on my title page, but it is the Star Wars Return the Jedi, because it was only out for Return the Jedi, B-Wing fighter from the Rebel side. Now it's quite a big old lump, which is why the camera's having to be so far back. Really nice ship, a really unusual design this one. Came in for the last battle scene against the half-built Death Star in Return the Jedi. Obviously I'm quite up on this because I was into Star Wars even before I was into Transformers. Like I say, big old ship. It was built for the 3 3/4 inch figures, which I've got the odd one here which I've picked up from a boot fair before. So I've got Admiral Ackbar, which is kind of apt because he wasn't the actual pilot for this, but on the, I think on the box art they tended to show Admiral Ackbar with it. I don't think the last 17 figures were out early enough for them to actual photograph, because there is an actual B-Wing pilot which I do have in amongst my stuff, which will end up sitting in this. But as you can see, the 3 3/4 inch figures go in okay into the cockpit. If I move that in, you do get some nice sticker details inside the cockpit. No real sort of controls, but back in the day when Return of the Jedi was out, you know, you didn't get high detail sort of mouldings of small parts in a lot of the toys. It's a bit more basic, but it all works and that's fine. You know, it sits in and looks pretty good with a figure in there. One of the bits what was broken, which I'll bring it in, was this. It's either a little pylon or a little gun, depending on what you want to class it as. That was actually snapped off. Now that may have put people off purchasing this, I don't know, but where I found it, whoever had owned this before, it snapped off. They probably put it inside the cockpit for safekeeping, and then it had ended up going through the hinge part at the top of the canopy and going into the back here. So I've actually managed to turn it over, because I heard something rattling about and I thought it might have been a weapon or something got lost in there, but it was a bit annoying anyway. So I turned it over and it just slid into view just in the gap of the hinge. So I got a pair of tweezers and just pulled it straight out, and I was quite chuffed, to say the least, to find the missing piece, because it does complete the actual ship. Now get into a proper review of the ship. Now I'll give you a quick 360 of it. Now on the top you do get some sticker details as well, you get some sort of like panelling details, and you get the big red stickers which just form rebel markings, a bit like a Japanese flag. Don't know quite what they're in aid of, but there you go. And you do get some underneath as well. Now as you can see, it does come with an undercarriage. Now that is simply for when you sit it down it's not resting down, tipping all over the place. The undercarriage is also this part here as well, which is just a lump of plastic effectively. But the undercarriage at that end is quite nice, and again it's sort of reasonably moulded, reasonably sort of detailed, a little bit like the sort of Millennium Falcon sort of undercarriage from the period. You do get, which are removable I believe from when you sort of put the ship together when you get it new, you get a pair of guns on the wings and you get a set of cannons. Now you often see these snapped off, especially the long one. I've seen one at a local sort of like, not antique centre sort of thing, but it's just a general sort of emporium of different things, and they had one of these, what was missing, these guns and the big one snapped off, and it was in tatty condition, and they wanted 58 quid for that, and I paid a lot less. I paid about half that. So like I say, really pleased with that. Now the gimmick with this ship, well there's two. First one, as you turn the ship, and if it's going to work for me, you'll see the cockpit should, maybe Admiral Ackbar's weighed it down a little bit, but the cockpit revolves independently of the rest of the ship. So there you go, it's doing it. You've got to give it a chance because it is early 80s or mid 80s when this came out, so it's a little bit, probably got a bit of dust in there which slows it down. But the cockpit revolves, which is supposed to do in the film as the ship spins through the Death Star, which I think the odd one of these did go in on that attack. It revolves round even though the ship's moving all over the place, that the cockpit stays still, which is probably a good feature if you're a pilot of it. Anyway, the other feature, if you look at the back side of it, you've got 4 engines. Now you pull back on this one up here to lock it in position, and get that the right way around. You push it in slightly, and by turning it, if it will play ball with me, or does it pull out? I'm sure it's in. Oh, there you go, I've got my finger against it. It's not very smart. Anyway, so you push it in and turn it, and as you can see, that moves a sliding piece of plastic. Basically there's 2 cogs with teeth on the sliding bit of plastic, and as that moves down it lifts up the wings, so it becomes its sort of flight mode. Now you can flip a catch up top here, and that puts the undercarriage away, which again works in a long sliding piece of plastic to engage both pieces at the same time. You then pull the engine out slightly, and that actually locks the wings, so they won't, well it's supposed to anyway, but let's see if I can get to actually play ball. It's supposed to engage a cog, which actually limits it. Probably a bit worn over the years. Let's try it. No, either way it's a little bit giving, but then like I say, it's over 30 years old, so you're probably talking a bit of wear and tear. But anyway, that's how it's supposed to work anyway. It's supposed to lock them in place. But that's its flight mode, so it would fly along like so. Again, an unusual design ship. Where they get the idea of that it's a B-wing, I don't quite get that. Whether it's that piece and the cockpit's supposed to be like the 2 loops of a B, don't know. It doesn't really work for me, the name wise anyway, but ship wise really great. One thing which was an issue, and I'd actually took it apart to actually check it out and try and work out what was wrong, and that's, this does have electrics. Even though it's back in the 80s, it did come with electrics, as did a few of the Star Wars vehicles, even some of the earlier ones as well, and it wasn't working. It's the usual thing, somebody left some batteries in, corroded up the contacts and that. I had a look inside to check the wiring and the connections onto the button which activates the electrics. They were generally okay. The motor inside just rubs against a bit of plastic for a sound. That all looked like brand new, so I was guessing there was no issues there. I tried to make sure the actual motor was free turning, that was fine. So going back to the actual battery compartment, I checked all the connections, made sure the wires weren't disconnected or anything from there, and I actually managed to get out my van. I got some effectively like WD-40 stuff, but it is a little bit more good for electrical connections as well, and sprayed it in on some of the contacts after I'd given them a bit of a scrape to clean off like the verdigris you sort of get on brass contacts. Sprayed that in, left it for a few minutes and wiped it all out, get rid of the excess in there, and actually after a couple of sort of wiggles on the actual connections on the top as well, and because there's like a metal plate that crosses the two batteries inside there, and a little bit fiddling around moving that and pressing the button, if it's going to play ball, which it isn't, it just needs a little bit of a touch, and it was working for me. Either it's dried back out again, if I wind the wings in so I can hold it a little bit better. Now, it did work earlier, which is really annoying. If I open the compartment, you can see what I'm on about. You've got two electrical connections there and the two batteries. Oh, that's so annoying. It's a horrible noise, to be honest. It wasn't half what I thought it would be. I thought it would be more of a clicky noise, a bit like a gun sound. Went for a second there. It's just a case of getting just that connection right. There's obviously just a really small dodgy connection. There you go. Sounds painful, doesn't it? That is actually all it is capable of. So I suppose it's just an alert sound. Obviously the stopping and starting, that was me pressing it. It was no fun like that. It'd just be a constant, which I don't quite know why it would want to do that, but there you go. Not the best sound effect, but it is a little bit similar to the Millennium Falcon's one. I think that was a little bit sort of screechy like that as well from memory. But yeah, all pretty good. Loads of moulding detail. They always did put tons of detail on the Star Wars ships. Loads of panel markings, bolt marks, stuff like that. Really good. Especially when you consider the amount of moulding just on the collar part around there, what the cockpit revolves in. It's a high degree of sort of workmanship when you think about it. And when you think, you know, this was, like I say, 30 years ago, toy manufacture really took off, especially for movie franchises with Star Wars. So they were kind of the forerunners of the merchandising we get these days. So, really nice ship. I would recommend picking it up. It's worth hunting around for a good one, and it's also, you know, don't get stung by dealers and that wanting to charge too much for it. Like I say, you've got to look out for the bits on the front of the cockpit which get snapped off, the little aerial parts, gun barrels. These guns are often missing, and there should be a cluster, I'll count them up for you, there should be a cluster of 4 guns or 4 pylons out of the bottom of the actual main wing there. All of these parts do come off. Now that is one advantage. If you did find a junker and you could locate the parts for a reasonable amount, that is effectively 3 bits of plastic. You could take the 2 sides apart and replace the inner gun parts if you found a good one of them, but you had those bits. Like I say, these guns I think more or less just unclip, so you could replace those. But it is a little bit harder sometimes if it's sort of bits what are moulded in. Again though, you could strip it apart and make up a good one out of a couple of junkers if they had opposite parts. But anyway, like I say, well worth picking up. I'd say it's my first of my Star Wars reviews. I might do, if I'm talked into it, I might do some of my other vintage vehicles. I have got quite a lot of Star Wars stuff, and I do happen to pick up vintage bits now and again from the boot fairs. But yeah, like I say, that was a little bit of a grail for me, because that was one of the ships which I never got and always liked. Anyway, hope that was okay for you, Gary, and for Dave. I don't think there's a lot more to add to it. No, I think that's it. So, hope you enjoyed that little review of something a little bit different from me. And I hope to see you again for another review, whether it's Transformers or, you never know, I might even do another Star Wars one. Thanks for watching.